Hey everybody, welcome into Rock Painting 101, where we give you fun, new rock painting ideas that anybody can create. I hope you enjoyed the tutorial. If you do, give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe. Let's get painting.
So thank you guys that are joining in live right now. Welcome in. Feel free to say where you're watching from. Maybe you'll find a rock painting buddy in the group. Today we are just talking about brush on sealers. I've gotten a lot of questions that a lot of people have issues when they use paint pens, in particular with brush on sealers. This is the problem. I actually messed one up on purpose. This is the problem people have when they use their brush on sealers. They often smear their paint pens, or even maybe sometimes their paint on their rocks. So I did two here. These are both sealed, and as you can see, one's smeared and one's not. So we are going to chat about a few tips to help out with that. Now, if you use a spray-on sealer, I use spray-on sealers most of the time. I've got a full tutorial on the website about that. I've touched base on the brush ones, but normally I have so many that I like to just spray a whole bunch at once. But in the winter, sometimes you just can't get outside. The temperature's not right. You might need a brush on sealer. And so I've actually been using this one quite a bit because the temperatures here have been frigid and I still want to keep up with sealing my rocks. So the one I'm using today, this is the Dura Clear from Deco Art. I've got the gloss finish one. I got the 8-ounce bottle. If you're gonna buy this, if you're planning on using quite a bit, just go for the 8 ounces. It's worth it to just upgrade to the bigger one. And this is the gloss varnish finish. I believe they also have a matte if you prefer matte, but here I've got one here, finished and unfinished. So you can kind of see the sealing for that, or the gloss for that, I guess you could say. And then I'm also going to really quickly hashtag the back of this rock while we're live so I can show you, because if you notice, if you recognize this rock, I did paint this one a little while back, maybe 2 weeks almost now. So I do want to show you, it doesn't have to sit a full 2 weeks or anything before you use this tip to seal your rocks. So I'm going to start by hashtagging my rock, and we'll let that dry a little bit. You don't want to go to it right away. But I just always do mine RP101. And I don't necessarily hashtag my rocks because I expect people to post them, but I hope that if somebody finds one and they search that, they find this whole idea of painting kindness rocks, maybe sparks their interest enough to find out what it's all about. So I know some people do hashtags for their local groups and things like that, so it makes it easier to track them. So I'm gonna go ahead and seal this rock here, and when I'm done with the first coat on that, I'll probably be able to go ahead and do this because paint pens dry pretty fast. So again, if you've had problems where when you are sealing your rocks, you get this running of your paint pens, this is how I do it, and I've had a lot of success with this. So when I'm going to be sealing a handful of rocks, I tend to just pour it right into my cap. And I always make sure that I have an extra rock or two that I can do any extra that I have left over, so I use it all up. So let me get this poured in over here. I just got some on my workbench. All right, and now you want to take a larger paintbrush, one that can fit in whatever you put your sealer in. And what we're going to do is we're actually going to dab the first coat along. And I always make sure that you don't want to re-dab over the same place, because when you get your paint pens, these are water-based paint pens, and until they're completely sealed, especially if they're on top of another paint, if that water gets into them, it can start to loosen up the paint again. So we're going to just kind of dab it right on top like this and work our way down our rock, being careful not to, like, if you touch it right away, it's not a big deal, but like once you get to about here, you don't want to come back up here and dab again. If you feel like you've missed a spot, just wait. You want to wait until that first layer dries. So I'm just dipping the tip in my brush here, and I'm just going to dab, starting at the top, dab back and forth. Now, if I get a big glob, if you get it right away, you're fine. Just dabbing back and forth. Flip that brush over. You just don't want to touch it once it is saturated. Just like that. Now this over here, that was acrylic paint. just grab that real quick. But see, just like that. Now I'm not going to touch anywhere where I put that down again. Just let it be. It's that brushing motion once it's gotten wet that really forces or creates that bleeding with the paint pens, because once that paint pen is a little bit wet, you can manipulate it a little bit. But so let's see, I'm going to peek at this off to the side, make sure it doesn't look wet anymore. So right here, I still got a little moisture on here. I'm just going to dab right on here, just like that, just once across, okay? And if you're just joining in live, I literally wrote that on here, the RP 101 during this live. So that's how quickly I went ahead and did it. Because I know that some of you might recognize this rock and realize, oh wait, she painted that 2 weeks ago. That's why it's not running. So it really does work right away. But as you saw, I was dab, dab, dab motion. Do not brush back over it, okay? I should have a couple more rocks over here that I can use up what I poured in this cap. We want to let this first layer dry all the way. If you're still worried, do the second layer as a dabbing motion as well. But once you get a good coat on there, you can just do a nice big thick brush on layer. So which sealer? I'll show you in just a second. I'm using the DuraClear gloss sealer. So once you've got those layers on, you can definitely come back and really get it on there. I like to really stack up this sealer. It gives it a really fun glossy look. So see, I've got the lid off right now, but it's this one here. DuraClear, and it's a gloss. They do have a few different finishes, I believe, as well. So I've got to find a couple more rocks here that I can add a little sealer to, because I poured quite a bit out. Some random doodles I did with my daughter, and I did these. Every once in a while we paint without you watching. She enjoyed those. And for those of you guys that have been following along, her Valentine's rocks went over so well at school. She was so happy when she came home after passing those out. Let's see, I don't really have a whole lot. Oh, see, I haven't hashtagged the back of this one. I didn't even put this one out yet. Let's go ahead and do it. Sometimes I write on the back. Now, when you're using these extra fine, I'm right on the rock. I'm not pushing very hard. You don't want it to splatter, and you also do not want to wear down that tip. Over time, you'll wear down that tip. So a slight angle helps with that. And I go really light. You can always go back over the line again. There we go. All right, so you can see on this top rock here, since we did it right on the surface, where, oh, I had a little sticky spot on my paper, where it's drying. So you can kind of tell, because it's hard. Oh, I got a little paper on the back, so this is this rock. I'm gonna rub that off really quick. It was a tacky spot on my paper. Now this side was already sealed, so I'm literally rubbing off this tacky spot. And look at this side, still looks great. So it's a really nice thick coating on there. I don't know what that was. Probably from me sealing before. So I'm gonna move this guy off to the side. I don't wanna put it right back on there. Here, grab a fresher piece of paper maybe. This was the paper we sealed all of our Valentine's rocks on. There we go. So that one's getting there dry-wise. So I'm gonna go ahead and do my second coat on this, because you can see the edges. See, I can feel along the edge. I don't want to dab where my actual paint pen is, because I don't want to accidentally smear that in case it is wet, but you can feel that it's not extra tacky. So I usually like to wait until it's completely dry in between coats. And like I said, the second coat, I'm going to go on and do that exact same thing, more the dabbing motion. So for those joining in live, I dab, dab, dab on top. Do not brush. And I try not to go over, I just did it there. I try not to go over the same spot twice. See, and I just painted this one here. You guys that are watching live, just painted this one here, and I'm gonna go ahead and seal it. So again, dab, 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 dab. And on here, you can really see where you got it wet. But again, don't go back over that same spot. Even if you think, oh, it looks a little thick, it will soak in, it will dry. You do not want to touch that again while it's wet like that, because these paint pens, again, they're water-based. So once they're exposed to the liquid, you can manipulate them. So this is looking pretty good here. I'm gonna do a second coat, just dabbing on this one again, just in case I missed any spots. I'll show you after I get this on. A rock that I accidentally didn't do the dabbing twice on. So dab, dab, dab around on that one. And hold on just a second here. So some of you guys might recognize this one here. So what I had done is I dabbed, 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 and then my second coat I just brushed, and I had missed this little area somehow in my initial dabbing. And so when I brushed my second coat on, look at all of this looked great, and this one spot got smeared. So it's that brush motion. So now I always dab it on 2 times, because you always live and learn. You learn something with every mistake, right? So I always dab it on twice, and then the third coat I go ahead and do a nice thick brush on, go ahead and get down the sides, depending on what kind of paint you used on your side. If it's just acrylic paint, like this one was acrylic paint, I could just brush right along the edges and it would be fine. Now this one's almost done here. This third coat you'd be able to kind of brush on once it's dry. But I just wanted to share those tips because I know a lot of people have this problem. I see it a lot where they're going to brush on and they get this smear, and that's exactly what will happen. Is once you get that top layer wet, if you go back over with the brush and brush it, it's going to move that paint. So just, you want to seal that paint in. And it's the same with the spray sealer. I know some people talk about when they spray seal their rocks, they get their paint pens running. It's the same thing. You're oversaturating the rock. So that first coat or 2, I would actually recommend 2. Those first 2 is just so light, and with the spray it's the same. From far away, you're just kind of spritzing to seal the edges, seal that first layer. A second one the same, just spritzing, just like we're dabbing, just to kind of seal it in. And then after that, you can go in with a thicker coat, okay? So I've got you guys all here. Does anybody have any questions about this process while we're here? I know I try to catch them sometimes when they're flying by live, but sometimes I miss them. This one's drying here, but see, even though I got it pretty saturated, but since I dabbed, it's kind of hard to see right now because it is pretty wet, but you can tell that it's not actually running on there. And let's see here. So see this one, we did this one live. I literally wrote that rock painting one on there. It is very frustrating when the smearing happens. This one really made me mad because I thought I had done it with my new technique and blah, 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 blah. And then sure enough, so that's why, again, you learn. When you make a mistake, just make sure you learn a lesson from it, right? So with this one, I learned, now I dab twice, just in case for some reason, I don't know if I was just not paying attention, I completely just missed that section when I dabbed it. So this one I did on purpose, just so I had an example, but I had forgot that I could show you that one. So yes, it is frustrating. If you're unsure about the products you're using, some paint pens maybe react differently. Like this is a water-based paint pen. This is my Artista one. I use Posca a lot, so this method works with that. I always say if you've got a new kind of sealer or a different kind of paint that you've never used, get a tester rock. Do not try a new sealer on a masterpiece or, a new technique on a masterpiece. Take a little rock off to the side, doodle something on there, and test out your sealer. This one looks a little antiqued. There you go. I can go with that. So yes, if anybody else has any other questions about the brush-on sealing, feel free to leave them here, or if you're watching the replay right now, feel free to leave them here. I will come back through and answer them. I'm going to build this up as a post to put on the website here soon as well. If you need tips for spray-on sealers, we've got loads of those on the site already, like I mentioned before, because that's what I use probably 75% of the time. But this weather has been so cold, I can't use it right now because you have to have warm enough temperatures to use spray sealers effectively. So I haven't been able to use them for a little while. So thanks everybody who joined in live today. Thanks for the thumbs ups and the shares and everybody that's been following along. We'll be back soon with something else for you here on Rock Painting 101. Bye-bye.